First zero balancing experiences.
I was actually training as an acupuncturist, and my acupuncturist, Deirdre, who is brilliant, said, "Oh, I'm doing this new thing I've been learning. Sort of, do you want to go, really?" And I would have probably said yes to anything she said, really. But I said yes, and it was amazing. I felt different almost immediately. I can still remember it really clearly, which is one of the, I think, quite astonishing things. That sometimes in life something really wonderful happens and you remember. So the protocol is very simple in zero balancing, and you're lying down, and at one point, sort of towards the second half of the session, somebody comes around, the person giving it, and holds you under your back like this. And the feeling, the only way I can describe the feeling, it because that was my closest experience of it, was that when you're walking along and you've got a really heavy rucksack, and you've started plodding a little bit because it's a really heavy rucksack, but you've sort of forgotten you've got it somehow, but you carry on walking, and then you're sort of carrying on walking, go, just get to that hill, or just get to that tree. And then you get to the tree and you finally got there, and you take your rucksack off, and it almost feels like you're floating upwards. And that was the feeling I got on that first session when Deirdre was working under my back, that I was floating upwards, that I'd shed this huge rucksack of stuff. I didn't even know what it was. I wasn't bothered by that. It didn't have any content in that way. And it was liberating.
My first experience of receiving zero balancing was actually on my ZB1 training. I had never had a zero balancing, but as I say, there was something that drew me to it, and I didn't know what it was. So my first full experience was at the end of day one of ZB1, and I was given a zero balancing. And I knew why I really, really, really knew why I was there. So, because I was just blown away.
Quite terrifying, really. I hadn't been handled by a man kindly since I could ever remember. I went to boarding school where there was beatings and there was fights and, dog eat dog world. So my experience of male touch was pretty abusive in lots of different forms. So to let my body go into another male's hands was scary to begin with. But I began to settle into it as the session progressed and began to trust. It took a long time, but something touched me. I was still very wary of it.
And I got hooked after my first session. It was more than amazing. It was mind-blowing. Well, I don't think I'd ever had a therapy that didn't need you to take your clothes off, first of all. So that was quite attractive to me. Having read the article as well about the benefits to dancers, I was intrigued to know what it felt like to have something done to your body which wasn't massage and it wasn't anything else that I'd ever experienced before. And when I got off the table, Anna asked me to walk around, which I did, and she said, let's have a little chat. How do you feel? What do you feel? Is there any experiences? And I just recall that I described the feeling as if I had been I'd been compartmentalized. So every part of my being had fit into a little compartment. So everything was organized and there's no chaos anymore. But I felt like that everything had been put into a matchbox. And I remember that very, very distinctly, a matchbox. I mean, how small is a matchbox? And I was also incredibly hungry. So, So I said, look, I need some food. I'll come back and I need to know more about this. And I did have some very bizarre experiences after that as well, which I can only leave down to the zero balancing, because I did then have another 2 sessions. And when I say bizarre, it was just things that came back from my past that I didn't quite understand, but I realized that something had been brought up that perhaps I just either needed to look at or acknowledge and then let go of.